Hello.
Hello there.
Hey,
Hi.
Amos, how are you?
Good, man. How are you doing today?
Everything is good. It's Friday.
Yeah, it is Friday, isn't it? Listen, thank you so much for rescheduling. I'm really sorry. I apologize on behalf of Dan.
No, it's okay.
He's got a family and things came up. But I really appreciate you rescheduling for us.
No, I totally get it. It's fine, and I don't know what's to have kids, but I know my brother has, and I know.
It's extreme, isn't it?
You cannot make plans.
No. Nothing ever works out.
Yeah. Let's go straight into War of Being. It's been out, and the reviews have been amazing. That surprised you?
Yeah, to be honest, we've always had our core fan base has always really been supportive and really into what we do, but we've never had an album land so strongly with them and also break out to a wider audience, and in particular, the press in general. They've been really, really just across the board, really positive. And I feel like the work that we put into it, not just, physically the amount of work we put into it, but the ideas that we put into it and the way that we worked to convey those ideas seem to have paid off, and people seem to see it as an interesting piece of art rather than just, some gent band has another album out. Great.
I'm always curious when, a musician, when he makes an album, he always feels strong about it. I mean, if you don't, there's something wrong with you. But
yeah.
When you finished, when you were writing the album, when you finished, did you felt that this could be your best work yet?
It's really interesting. I'm going to say that there is an initial spark of that's cool, that because you are writing and going over these things again and again, it's really hard to keep that sort of optimism, positivity and excitement about a track, because your perspective on it changes. So we were lucky enough that we sat down with our producers and gave them a simple goal, which was make sure that we include at least one moment of frisson, or goosebumps, where you feel that has to be present in every song. And I think all the way through mastering, right until final delivery, we were still kind of feeling that there was always a moment of where the music jumped out and grabbed us, and we felt it really strongly. And so I guess from that perspective, yes, we had not the belief, because we're not quite self-conceited like that, but we were happy with what we've done. Whereas sometimes we have released an album where we weren't certain of that. We were like, okay, we had this moment, but we weren't feeling it all the way through to release, or as it is now for us, 16, 17 months after finishing the recording process. So we, I think, yes, I'm not to say that it was going to be our best work yet. Who knows what people will feel in 6 weeks' time or 6 years' time. Maybe they'll get sick of it and they'll be like, this thing doesn't actually have legs. But I can only hope that it does,
Maybe in 20 years' time, they'll look at probably the first record and say that was a true masterpiece. And
maybe they will, yeah.
It's always hard. And, how long did it take? I mean, did the pandemic obviously we'll talk about Portals in a bit, but the show that you guys did during the pandemic. But this album was written during that period. Did you guys at the time? I was, the writing process for all of it.
This one, regardless of the pandemic, we had decided that we were going to take as long as we would take to do this, much to the people around us, their dismay, because they're like, okay, we're going to let you do that because, that's you, and we can only wish to work with the best of you. But it is going to be harder for you when you come back, because it will be a comeback. It won't be that people will be, you won't be fresh in people's minds, because it, as it turned out, 5 years down the line since a new album. With this one, obviously the pandemic afforded us and afforded many musicians time to stop, get out of that cycle of record, release, tour that is, for some bands, is 18 months, for others 2 years. And I'm really hoping that for bands like us, we can make it as long as it takes. So that obviously allowed us to sit with things and let it kind of brew a little more, and let our feelings about something really come through. And also for us to, because we don't work quickly. Some tracks fell together incredibly quickly, but we still took time whilst recording those and whilst finishing those off to make them what they are. So interestingly, some of these songs are actually way older than the pandemic. There's elements of these songs, like the first track, there's an element that came from roughly 2012, 2013, but it was just a small part of it, whereas the rest of the track was very recent. And then all the way between that and right the way up up to when we were actually in the studio, that's, you've got a good 9 years maybe worth of ideas coming in and out. So it's quite strange, because from some perspective, it's almost like it's a debut album, because bands get that opportunity before they release their first album to put their whole life into that. Whereas after the first album, you very often only have those 2 years, which you could have spent time on the road constantly. This is why bands like Linkin Park, when they were touring, they'd be writing constantly on the road, because they knew they had to have a new album out in a couple of years, and it would be impossible to do otherwise. So it's really interesting from that respect to feel it's almost, like I say, a debut album and a retrospective at the same time, which I'm really, really happy about, because I don't think we actually have the opportunity to do that again with the demos that we have now still sitting around waiting.
Yeah. And, to this album, there's more than just the album. There's a VR game. There's, I think there's a novel or something that's attached to it that's coming. When you guys start writing, do you have this concept in mind already? And did you work towards that concept? Or it was just something that developed, through the end, and you guys realized, okay, maybe we can do some more with this?
They kind of ran in parallel, because like I say, we did have ideas that were quite old, and Akko and Dan, when they started developing some ideas that involved lyrics, there were proto-lyrics already. So whilst Dan had started writing what he wanted to say, I had also started writing this concept. And as a result, I was listening to what he was saying and going, okay, well, I can fit that into my ideas, and we can try to have some form of synergy going on from the start. So I was always very keen that I wasn't going to pigeonhole the band or put them into a corner where we'd have to follow like a story that, let's take Lord of the Rings, for example. We weren't going to do a musical of Lord of the Rings where, Frodo steps outside his door and then we follow every step all the way to the end. No, it was going to be almost like you're walking through an art gallery and you see a snapshot of a moment that makes you think and pulls emotion out of you, and it is set within this world and within that narrative. So we were quite lucky because that meant there was an element of freedom there, and there was an element of temporal freedom, like we could move things around in terms of time because we were going for this aspect rather than making it the first note is a linear experience all the way until the last note.
Yeah. I was listening to the record and it just eases, all the way through. Sometimes there's, records that, you sometimes just want to skip the freaking thing to the next song.
Yeah.
But on this one, there was like, I sensed if I did skip something, I was going to miss something as well.
Nice.
How did you guys have that in mind, making like a continuous work, an album like over an hour, and make it interesting, and it's an intentional thing for people not to lose their attention, because these days it's very easy to just, oops, my attention is gone. What happens now?
Yeah. Well, it's intriguing, isn't it? You kind of have to do both at the same time, don't you? You have to think of the track in isolation and at the same time think of it in terms of what you're doing with the whole album. And that isn't that straightforward. But again, it's about feeling, and it's almost about not intellectualizing something or making assumptions of what a listener might experience. So it is honoring each moment, I think. And if we manage to put those, again, going back to the idea of charging the producers with the idea of making sure that there was moments of excitement and frisson in each track, it meant that it's almost like a little dopamine hit, and it makes the listener, you're almost rewarding them for maintaining or continuing along the whole journey. And maybe because you're enjoying that moment, you trust that there'll be more of those moments. Yeah. So hopefully that's the case.
And, I talk with, musicians, a lot of the time. And, I always like to ask if a song is truly finished. And the normal response is they are as finished as they could be at that time.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. This is it. It's good to have a time limit because it means that you put stuff out, but you always wanted to do more. Always. There was always a case of, I wish we'd had more time to refine this or refine that. But if you take a step back, it is what it is. And it was of that moment. And that is great. And, you can always continue and develop these things if you take them on tour. And that also makes it interesting for us, because after playing the bloody thing for 300 or 400 times, you maybe find yourself getting a little bored with some of it. It doesn't matter how good the song is. I'm sure every artist wants to tweak things and do little things here or there.
Yeah, but you cannot let yourself get into the vicious circle of, I want to refine this, I need to refine that. Otherwise, nothing will ever happen in the end. And probably after refining so much, the original idea, that spark that made you excited is gone. And you don't want that to happen.
So is it Rick Rubin? He was saying that exact thing, that you you cannot over conceptualize things. You cannot over intellectualize things. You've got to feel art or feel creativity and allow it to be, even if it's messy. And our producers, Peter Miles and Catherine Marsh, there were times when they told us to stop. And, it would make us angry because we're like, no, I've got a better take in me. And they'd be like, yeah, technically it might be better, but from a creative point of view, you've hit the nail on the head and you're here because you trust us. So trust us. This is perfect. You do not need to keep going over this and almost squeezing the excitement out of it just because you want it to be played in a, conceptual manner. That was really cool. And that has been one of the greatest gifts, I think, for us to have that creative team to work with.
And it's funny to talk about Rick Rubin because I was just watching a video of him and some people it was an interview for CNN, I think. And people were shocked that the guy was asking like if he knew anything about music, if he touched any of the knobs in the studio, whatever. And he said no. And the guy was asking, so what do you bring as a producer? He said like the feeling, I just tell them if I'm feeling the song, if I'm feeling what they're doing. And if I'm not feeling it, I'll tell them what I think. And it's up to them to then work on it. And people were, and I was just seeing some reactions to people and saying like, why would you pay someone just to say if he likes or not? But like you work with like Johnny Cash, who worked with Slade, who worked with like hip hop artists, and the records always, stand out for a reason.
Exactly.
Maybe something that we don't know.
It is really interesting. I think I remember Red Hot Chili Peppers. They worked with him on Californication, maybe. And I remember hearing them saying they were really excited to work with him, but then they kind of walked out after the first week of rehearsing, recording and writing, was thinking, the hell is he doing? He's just at the back of the room, lying on the sofa going, yeah, I feel that, or no, that's not good. And they were just crazed over it because they're thinking, we've never done anything like this before. And yet, I mean, turns out it's a great album for many people. So I guess he's justified in his approach.
Yeah. And if it works, some people might prefer, someone that can play every instrument and, but, it is what it is. And it has success. It works, has been working. So, just let Rick Rubin do his Rick Rubin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think people know by now what they're going to get when they work with him. It's not like...
Yeah, totally.
It's not like, oh no, he's not here anymore. Anyway, and you guys are going on the road. It's going to be like a 7-month tour, which is probably one of the longest tour you guys have done, like as far as I remember, probably like announcing so many shows like in a row. Yeah. I think I don't even remember like most bands doing it. They normally just announce Europe. And then after that, they just announce Asia, whatever. But you guys said like, here it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it promotes itself. The very fact that you have done that, have shown that, it already has its own momentum. And as you go throughout the tour, it builds and it builds. So it was kind of, we just, for us personally, we needed to see that everyone around us was working as hard as we were and had faith in what we were doing as well. So yes, we'd been away for a long time, but to some degree, everybody's been away for a while, and we're only really after like, let's say 18 months of being fully back up to speed, really getting into the swing of things again. And the whole world has changed for performers. So this was as much of a statement as our first single from this album. It was a case of, all right, yes, we've had some time down, but boom, there you go. Don't mess around, And to be honest, that we haven't announced all of the tour dates, but it felt that let's do this first, and then we'll start to announce the secondary tour once we're kind of walking through this bit. We'll go back to Latin America and we'll go to the rest of Europe. And I think there's somewhere else I've forgotten, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to go a lot longer.
Busy. And you guys, besides the music, it's you guys are very visual as well with stuff you do. Videos, like with the Portals show, was pretty much that as well. Are you going to guys update, the live show now for this tour? Because you guys raised the bar with the album, with the videos, for Vision World Being. People are expecting a lot. I am, I have no idea what you guys are going to do when you play live, but I have high expectations now. So what can you say for the live show? What might happen with the live concept as well?
We have always been conscious of like, okay, we've done this now. This is going to be what people expect. So the initial plans for our first run, we basically just have to scale them back massively because costs have just become astronomical, and we have to be fairly sensible in that manner. We were going to bring everything to the table, and I've basically gone through the budget and gone, I cannot justify leaving the house and walking away being 80,000-90,000 in debt for no, it makes no sense for the longevity of the band. We're just going to have to kind of take 2 steps back and work our way towards where we know everybody expects again. That being said, we're still not messing around. We're going to bring an amazing show because of the people that are involved, for our sound guy and our lighting guy and our team behind the scenes. They're going to do, these people are world class. So hopefully they will bring a show to you and make it technically one of the best sounding and best looking shows that you've seen in these venues. And we will always try to make each venue not look the way that you've seen it before, if that makes sense. So, we'll never just turn up with and just use the house rig. We'll always bring extra elements. It's just, it's going to depend on the level of fee that we're getting for that show, whether or not we can invest in things like lasers and video. And, a lot of the stuff we do as well isn't necessarily possible in real life. It's only things like what you see in camera because of the camera artifacts, or stuff like CG, which obviously we can't do on stage yet. We'll see though. Who knows? Who knows what's coming?
And I always admire what you guys did when it comes to sound, because you mix the album like at 5.1. There's Dolby Atmos available as well, which for me, as someone that likes sound, it's a great experience. It's something that you probably only experience in cinemas when you go to an IMAX or something like that to get the full experience of a movie. On the live shows, it's kind of difficult to replicate something like that. I'm sure with time would be possible. I know there was like Arian, they did a show now in the Pompodium in Tilburg, and I think they were trying to put the speakers like in the back as well and try to recreate that Dolby Atmos thing for the whole show. I have no idea how the experience went. I know some people that gone, but I haven't talked to them. Do you think it's something that could be possible to do in the future? Because you guys do that, and it's probably quite a unique experience if a live show, instead of just from the front, getting all that.
Yeah.
Probably more in like a 3D kind of a sound.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because this was so we can roll this back to Portals. This was my thing about the medium that you're working with builds limitations that you are either inhibited by or you can exploit. So, for example, with Portals, I noticed that a lot of the streaming events, they were trying to stream a live concert. They were trying to make it put you in that space. And it's just not the medium of TV or screen doesn't lend itself to that. In fact, you have quite a limited amount of movement, and limited space. So you had to try and, from my perspective, treat it like cinema and treat it like a movie instead, and use those limitations to your advantage. So applying that to a live show, again, you're in a strange, noisy, chaotic space. So I wonder how well surround with rock or with metal, with something that's big and energetic, I wonder how well that would actually translate. Having the noise above you coming out of speakers that's then competing with whatever noise is on stage, I think it works incredibly well when there's no acoustic sound elements, like so many people have amps on stage, or even the singer or the drummer, for example, other people. It's a really interesting thing. I wonder how that would work in a scenario that's not just an audience member sat down watching something, because people move, that's part of the show. Would I want to take the euphoric element out of it, which comes partly from the chaos, from the energy, from the interaction between the band and the crowd? I like the idea, but I do wonder if it would kind of pull the fun out of it.
Maybe if if you guys do a special show with video visuals, maybe that's something like that would probably make more sense than just like a live touring thing, like a special show. Maybe it's something that would work, and again would be probably one-off experience for everyone. And maybe it could work.
I think those things, they're important though, to do like special events. I think they're really important, and we'll definitely try to take Portals, for example, to the stage at some point and figure out a way to make that incredibly immersive. So it's, as if you're sat at home with a massive TV in the dark, and somehow think about the best way to translate that to a stage show. And that would be really exciting for me. And in fact, it is stuff that we're talking about, if not actively working.
Well, that would be nice. And, I look forward for that day, if that day ever comes. I look forward to that. And, talking about Portals, I was that, those 2 years were freaking crazy for everyone. How was for you guys? You already said, like, you want to do something unique, took advantage of. Doesn't have to be live, could be recorded, and then bring the experience, all the visual experience to the fans. How was all that process? How long did it take for you guys to prepare the Portals show?
We'd started to see bands do it very early on in the pandemic, and we were thinking, this is a cool idea. And we kind of did a small version of it where we were all in different countries, and we just because we were living in different places at the time. And that was almost like a test run, and it then gave us the confidence to go, okay, we could do something more here. And having the management that we have, who were very encouraging of certainly very encouraging of my ideas, and the band were very trusting that the creativity and the push wouldn't put us in massive amounts of debt. They were very trusting that it was going to work, and it did. It worked incredibly well for that time period. It was as if we went out on tour. It was that good a creative, professional, and financial experience for us. It probably took, I'm going to say, well, with pre-production, leading up to it was about 6 weeks, and then maybe before that, there was about 3 months of pre-production, organizing things. So pure just technical production and stuff like that, logistics. So it was quite something. Yeah, it was super intense. But then, everybody had more time to focus on these things at that point. And it was such a rewarding experience.
Yeah. And now with all that experience, under your belt, it's probably, if we were talking about the special show, it probably wouldn't take as long to do so.
No, yeah, that's it. I don't think so, because you know what works. You know what you need as well to make that work. You know that you need X amount of people, all with specialist jobs, just to make the thing happen. So it'd be really exciting to see how well that goes. I'm really surprised that streaming like a concert hasn't really taken off, and that people haven't continued that idea, because I totally love the idea of having the show that you're doing available as like an international date for the people that can't make it to your tour to be able to see what you do. And you're able to then make it perfect. There are no limitations from touring logistics. You can do exactly what you wanted to do with that show.
Yeah, that's one of the things that surprises me. And what you're saying, it's with those 2 years, I think there was, for every company that they realized that a lot of people could work from home. Where they thought it was impossible. Now they say like, no, that works. Let's keep it like that. And with bands, there is, I saw your show, I saw the Nightwish one, and, I saw like Code Orange as well. And, I see the ability and how great things can be and look and sound, and I agree with you. Why bands are not still doing it and not, preparing something special where they can probably put a bit more of money into the production and make something that's really, really special. And, I understand the live experience, and a lot of people prefer the physical thing that you can release as well after, like you guys did, and, it's there. I mean, it takes a lot of, especially if you're going to release it, it takes a lot of investment from like the machine that is doing that, be it a record label or if you're self-released. It takes a lot of resources to figure that out. But I mean, it's almost like a way to perhaps pay for production. And I think if we had more time between, because there's been a lot of stuff happening in the lead up to our release last week of the album. We've had like 6 months of production when it comes to videos, video games, and now touring. And we didn't really have enough time, even though we thought we would, but we didn't have enough time to, before this tour, have that available. The idea of a streamed date, an international date. So, I mean, that has bummed me out a little. I'm like, damn, that would have been so cool to do that, especially with the cinematographers that we know. We're like, damn, we could make this thing look incredible. Because these guys, we trust them fully, and they will bring their art to the table to join us, and we can create something magic. But it's a shame that it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it will happen later next year, maybe. I was watching the making of Legion, and, I was so happy to see that everything was built. It wasn't it wasn't just CGI green screens.
Yeah.
It was like a physical. I was so happy because I love. I have nothing against CGI, but
no.
I love when there's a work and there's an art in building something to make it look, good. And I was like watching that, and I was, the fanboy in me, and those kind of things. I was very happy, with it, and I think you guys did a great job with the videos and with everything that you guys are doing. And I look forward to see you guys live. I'm not sure if the second part of the tour that you will announce if you're going to play Portugal or not.
I would hope so. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I didn't understand why it wasn't on this initial routing, but I think it was. But then things got moved around, and then all of a sudden, it just doesn't work out. But yeah, I'd imagine we will be.
Well, I hope so. Otherwise, I probably will go to Dublin in February to see you guys. Anyway, so
Amazing.
I have family in Ireland. I have a good excuse. I'll say I'm going to see you guys there, but I'm going to see you as well. Sorry, but
Awesome.
It's a good excuse anyway. Amos, thank you very much for your time. All the best.
And you, man. Thank you so much.
War of Being is a masterpiece in my ears, and
Amazing.
Hopefully time will still give me reason and tell me I'm right about it.
Excellent, man. Excellent. I hope so too. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is really cool.
Thank you very much. And hopefully, we'll see you guys in Portugal maybe next year.
Yeah, certainly.
Right. Amos, thank you very much. Have a great day, and hope to see you guys soon. All right.
Have a good day, man.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.